Being at 7 o'clock, I'll call the Webster Township Special Board meeting to order. All those willing and able will stand and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Fellow board members, we have an agenda in front of us. Comments, questions, concerns?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, voice call. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes have it, the motion carries. The next item on our agenda is call to the public. Please come on up and tell us what's on your mind. Don't be shy.
Came back. And this time I'm going to do it right. I'm Laura Fawcett from 5092 Gleason Drive. First, I want to say that I'm grateful that this discussion is taking place in the public. I know that's part of the board's responsibility, but that doesn't make it any less difficult. It takes vulnerability to thoughtfully deliberate while your community is watching, and I appreciate your willingness to do that tonight. I also wanted to say that the last time when I left the meeting, I was feeling less discouraged than I had in quite some time. Listening to the interviews reminded me that all three candidates are thoughtful, qualified, and genuinely care about Webster Township. What I appreciated most was that each of them took seriously the question of what rural character means. They didn't all define it the same way, and I think that's exactly why the conversation was so valuable. At the last meeting, I said that Webster Township is unique because people come here for different reasons, and I've continued to think about that. I don't think people move to Webster Township because they want to do whatever they want. I think many of us move here because we're looking for a place where neighbors are a little slower to take offense, a little quicker to extend grace, and where we can get out of the way of the easily bothered. We came here to get out of the way, not to get our way. To me, that isn't separate from rural character, it is rural character. It deserves to be acknowledged as part of Webster Township's identity, not treated as an obstacle to it. The interviews also reminded me that preserving rural character can mean different things to different people. Each candidate brought a different philosophy to that conversation, and I think there's value in that. There's a saying that we should surround ourselves with smart people, and I think that's true. But I also think there's value in surrounding ourselves with people who see the world differently than we do. There is often more than one way to get to the same place, and I think the same is true of good governance. As you deliberate tonight, I simply hope you'll consider not only the qualifications each candidate brings, but also the value of having different perspectives around this table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura.
Hi, Dave Daly, 7223 Mulder. That was very well spoken. I completely agree. I think we've got three really good candidates. Any one of them would be able to do the job. The one thing I did want to bring up is, Grant, you had said at the last meeting during the interviews that you all are fiduciaries for the township. And yet, after the interviews, the first thing that we did is we moved to hire somebody full-time that was not budgeted, that has been working over the allotted hours for the last 3.5 months without any discussion other than what John brought up. And I just think that that was kind of missing the fiduciary mark, because there was a lot of other cost-benefit solutions that we could have come to. If most of the work is non-clerk related, that could have been outsourced. It could have been a temp brought in from a national temp agency, which there are many of them, and they're looking for work because automotive is down. So anyway, just my 2 cents on that. You know, fiduciary means a little bit more than, you know, it's watching the budget. Everybody, every one of you voted positively for that budget to be approved. So thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else? Okay, going once, twice. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you for your comments, Dave and Laura. The next item is the board response to the public.
I want to make one correction, Dave, with what you're talking about. What we were talking about last week was the insurance that has to go, and that's federally mandated if somebody's at 30 or 32 hours. Now, granted, in the future, that may not be the case, but right now it is, and we had to do that. That's what that was for. It wasn't for approving somebody full-time permanently.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to our main item then. The action items we have is the vote on the new township supervisor. Just as a quick reminder, we all received an email from Chris Patterson on kind of how this goes. The only nuances, and for the benefit of the public, we have, this is a 2-stage process. First is the nomination stage, then the discussion phase, I guess 3 phases, then voting. So we can nominate in any order. A second is not required. So we can nominate as many as one. A second can be done to reinforce that, is what Chris Patterson talks about. Then the nomination phase is closed. The order in which the nominations are made is where the voting will be. And prior to that voting, like I said, will be a discussion phase where we can talk about candidates, what we thought about, anything related to this process, and so on. And then we vote the first time, like in the order of the nominations. Will be a roll call vote, and Elena will handle that. We have the random roll call official mug that has all our names in it, so the names we pull from the hat for each case. And we'll continue with that process to the point where on the first vote, if a majority is reached, then it's closed and this new supervisor is appointed. If it's not, then we continue on. So with that, I'll open up the discussion to the nomination phase.
Meaning we can have some discussion.
First we nominate, so you can nominate one of the 3 candidates. That then gets recorded as the nomination. There can be a second. And then if other folks want to nominate someone else other than who has been nominated, that can continue. Ultimately, we could have as many as 3 nominations. Whoever's first is where we vote first. Once the nominations are then closed, we have discussion.
Okay. Well, I guess I just wanted to thank, before that occurs, thank the 3 candidates who applied. You know, it took a lot of effort to do that and get step forward, and so I just want to acknowledge that and appreciate that you did so. There's time and effort that goes into that. And I also just wanted to share, I guess, how I look at this. We did decide to do it in this transparent, open forum, which the board is not required to do, but we did because we wanted people to see how we went about it, and also to see who the candidates and how they responded to the questions. But in terms of how I looked at it, I looked at what the job is, what the responsibilities are, and kind of what expectations are, and then looked at the candidates and their job-related experience, skills and abilities, management experience through their years, and then listen to their presentations and how they responded to questions, and then compare those to the duties. And while good candidates, I do have a preference, but I just want to share that before other people may have comments they want to make as well.
We can have comments now. I mean, the way it was laid out here is we have a discussion after the nominations were made, but there's no set rule. We can do whatever we want. We can either have discussion or looking for nominations as those see fit.
Well, I'll nominate John Sharp.
I'll nominate George Goodman.
I'll second George. Okay, any others? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the nomination phase. Now we'll move to the discussion phase. I'll start off with all the candidates. I like what Dan said. This isn't an easy job. It's not an easy ask at all. So the fact that everybody that did stand up to the line to be counted, is a huge deal in my mind. I appreciate all the effort you went through, get preparing for the meeting and the interview and so on. Is something that's not taken lightly. And as you know, the questions that get asked here, when it gets to this table, it's all the tougher questions. All the easier ones get solved before it gets to this room. So in that sense, trying to find compromise and look for common sense solutions that are in the public's interest, as best as everybody sees fit, is a huge effort. So again, I thank each one of you.
I just want to say I think both nominated candidates are qualified and outstanding, and we're lucky to have two people who are that qualified applying for this position. Three people, but two candidates now. In my consideration of who I thought should lead, I have immense respect for John Sharp because he says what is on his mind, and he has gone above and beyond to really learn the job of treasurer and become an expert at it. I think that right now we need somebody who wasn't on the board to lead it. I think we need somebody outside of us because of the trust of the community. And I also think that losing John in the treasurer's role would be another disruption in the township office that would be hard for us to fill. So that was my thinking on it.
Good job.
I think now would be an appropriate time to talk about the treasurer's position. I don't think that whether you vote for me or not should be based on the fact that I'm currently the treasurer or who the next treasurer should be. I am prepared to reassure you that one of the things that I learned in my career was the importance of succession planning. I worked for a company where you could not get promoted if you didn't train somebody who was ready to step into your role as soon as you were promoted. And that is the case now. I have trained Amanda Weiss as my deputy treasurer. She is fully 100% capable of doing the job of treasurer. I've delegated every nut and bolt of the job to her over the last period that she's been with us. And she is willing and able to be the treasurer.
Anything else, Dan?
No.
I would agree with the comment that we have to make a decision what is the best person for the supervisor role, not understanding a potential backfill.
Tony, Jeff?
Well, I just want to echo everybody else in saying that I appreciate all three candidates
standing up here and answering questions. I think looking at how the candidates presented themselves, I want to say Mr. Stevens was very well spoken, and he was very well prepared for it. John, your professional knowledge, I think it's hands down the deepest that we have here, even amongst all of us. I believe that. And I believe Mr. Goodman brought more of a compassion and a thing of being willing to work with people. So that's really what I took out of a lot of it. I do echo some of what Shelley is saying. I don't want the perception of it being the same thing, us just bringing somebody else in, or just promoting our own people. Maybe we need a change with what's happened. I don't know. But looking at that, those were the things that I kind of weighed on how I was looking at it, how the interactions were going to be, both with the office and outside of the office. And you and I had talked about that prior to us taking things, when I had discussed with you about running. Me, not, or anybody else in the office. And some of the stuff that I said holds true for you too. And that was a thing for me when I was looking at some of this for my decision making.
Thank you, Jeff. Tony?
I'm a very selfish person, and I'm the clerk. And I like working with John, although we don't always get along, as treasurer. And that's my position.
Thank you. So again, I want to go back to Peter, John, George. Thank you guys for stepping up and applying. I guess I first want to start with Peter. Peter, watch your evolution for the last, I guess, 2 years since I've been coming every day and watching you here also. At first it was definitely a firebrand. I say that with all due respect, and that's meant as a compliment, where you were on policies. But I've watched you evolve into a student of public policy, which now that I see your full resume, it's obvious as to why. You have the right background to have that interest, and you've displayed that meeting after meeting. And your interest in going, I don't think you've missed a PC or a board meeting, I don't know how long, and as you mentioned when we were interviewing, your attendance record at the PC is better than any of us. I try to go to every other, every third, and you're always there. Regardless if we agree or disagree on everything, and I thought the way you made your points, even if I disagreed, you were still respectful and professional and reasoned in your thinking. I think also it's not a matter of if, but when you're sitting here or on one of the other boards. So I thank you for your time and your consideration. John, I think the same thing as what everybody else has said. I think hands down, some of the depth of your knowledge of public policy is strongest in the building. You've demonstrated that time and time again. The thing that I think our focus is on now that's of special interest, given what's happened, is conflict resolution, communication strategy, and forward thinking with the public, and how that's executed. And when I look at it from that lens, George is the clear selection in my mind. I think John would be excellent at doing it, but given where we're at in this timing, George, I thought when he presented and when he was at the interview, he was humble in that I remember he talked about his service as in high school. But if you looked at his resume, he served 30 years as a sheriff and was the K-9 unit ATF. So for conflict resolution, I can only think that our conflicts are minor in some ways, at least to the depth of what he's dealt with his entire professional career. His ability to communicate and listen to the public, I think, is excellent. His standing within all those organizations, I can only sum it up when I got a text from Andrews and Mansky like 4 or 5 years ago. It was George sitting there with Bonnie. Bonnie's who's now retired as his K-9 partner. They live down the street now in the rotunda at the United States Capitol. an integrity and communication standpoint, I thought that spoke volumes. I understand that also the concept you guys have raised on succession planning. I think Amanda may be very capable, but I think John is by far one of the best treasurers we've had here in recent memories. Commitment to the job is unmistakable. I think it'll be a loss losing him as treasurer. So from that standpoint, I think the clear solution is I think George is where I'll be moving. Thank you. Go ahead, John.
You'll be making a mistake if you think I'll stay as treasurer.
Well, that's stupid.
You're gonna threaten him?
Stupid.
It shouldn't be part of the consideration. I am clearly the most qualified person for the role. I've been on the board the longest, I know the rules. I have well-established working, positive relationships with the leadership of our neighboring communities.
John, you done? Thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you. Yeah, something on your mind?
Yeah, I'll reiterate, I do believe we need to be making a selection for supervisor, setting aside treasurer issue. There's ramifications there, but that's not, we cannot be making a decision based on the fact that we may have a different treasurer.
Don't misunderstand my comments. I could take the treasury comment out of my entire discussion I just went through, and I'd still come to the same conclusion.
That's fine, Brent, and I respect that. The responsibilities, are beyond the building. Now, it's critically important within, but there are numerous facets that go beyond this building that I think are important, and John has committed himself to engaging and involving with various entities that are critical to the environment and community that we live in. And he also has a long career managing people across the world, including here in the States, which gives him great experience in working with people, managing people, coaching, mentoring, developing people, and that's something that we can use here, and I think he would do an excellent job. And to me, the experience, understanding how the township functions and operates, is very, very important. George understands a tremendous amount, and I respect George. I like George. Of the two candidates, there's one that has more of that hands-on experience working within the township, developing the treasurer role and understanding the budgeting process. John can knock it out tomorrow, and we're good to go. So I think he would be a good leader for us in the township.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll close the discussion phase and we'll move to the voting. So Elena, so the first one up is Mr. John Sharp. Would you please call the roll? Nay.
Dan Munzel,
Aye.
John Sharp,
Aye.
Shelley Harrison,
Nay.
Tony Brabant,
Nay.
Jeff Barnes.
Nay.
It's a vote is 2-4, so the Sharp nomination fails. We'll move on to Mr. Goodman. we shuffle the deck?
You do it.
John Sharp,
Nay.
Dan Wenzel,
See where this is going? Yes.
Tony Brabant,
Yay.
Brent Savander,
Aye.
Shelley Dursack,
Aye.
Jeff Marms.
Aye.
So 5-1, George Guzman is now appointed as supervisor. Congratulations, George.
George.
The board has the option, when this has happened in the past, so when talking with MTA, George can take the oath of office now, we can do it tomorrow. There is no rule in the NCL. If there's any thoughts here by the board, you can do it right now, or can't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, both you and I took it at the meeting when we were appointed back in whatever, 16, 17, 18, 19.
So if George is willing, I would hope that he would take the oath and assume the duties.
I agree. Any other comments here, board members? All right, seeing none. Mr. Goodman, would you please come up and talk to Tony, and we'll take the oath of office.
Do solemnly swear
That I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of supervisor
and I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of supervisor
in and for the Township of Webster,
in and for the Township of Webster,
the County of
the
Washtenaw,
County of Washtenaw,
and the State of Michigan,
and the State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Okay, would you please sign right?
Elena, do we have another white? Not that George needs one.
We do.
I don't need that thing.
All right. All right, congratulations, George. You're now the supervisor of Webster Township.
All right, next item. Discussion and possible action, consideration of interim zoning administrator.
So we're going to try to jump in and help here.
So Alyssa is here this evening.
Well, this is Starling. Is he here? I'll jump in and help. Is she here?
Right here in the front row.
This is her resume, George. I can help here if you want.
Yes, if you could,
Yeah, so we have this in our packet, any comments or questions. This is the interim solution when since Shreya resigned. John, can you give some background on, have you talked to Alyssa?
Yeah, so we met and I explained her situation. She already had some insight from externally. We talked about the fact that we need a bridge to wherever our destination is as far as when this board decides what the structure we want and how we want to man that structure or fill those positions. And so the long and the short of the proposal that she's presented on the table is that she's willing to help us. In my opinion, she's able to help us. She's asking for an hourly rate of $100 with a minimum of 40 hours per month. And I would leave it to her to answer any questions that this body may have as far as what she can do for us, and I think we should be prepared to answer her questions as far as if we choose to move forward with her, you know, when and how we do that.
And if you'd like, I can speak.
Yeah, by all means. Don't be shy. Just be low key.
My name's Alyssa Starling.
You can use,
Sorry.
the mic.
I'm like George, I don't need it. My name is Alyssa Starling. Thank you for having me tonight. Currently, I work for Manchester Township, so we mentioned an external source. When everything kind of hit the news in terms of, I'd already heard about it, and then previously Zach Michaels and I worked together. So he reached out to me and said, hey, I've worked with this community before, and they're looking for somebody on an interim basis. So that was also, he's going to give me all the information of how this community works, what the priorities are, and things of that nature. But very familiar with Washington County land use preservation, specifically ag preservation. You guys have a wonderful, robust PDR program, and really ag preservation as a whole. So I really want to commend you on that, and I'm very experienced in that regard and happy to support that specific endeavor. But in all endeavors with zoning matters, currently with Manchester, I handle all of our permit reviews, special land uses, conditional land, you guys have special land uses, Manchester has conditional land uses, but similar in nature. So I handle all of that for them, from their noticing to their requirements. I also work really closely with your legal counsel, Chris Patterson. So I have an established relationship with him as well. So that would also be easy to pick up on any issues you guys are going through and need me to communicate with him. I already have that information. Other than that, yeah, if you guys have any questions for me, however I can explain more of my work or my experience. Previously I worked for CWA before working for Manchester, and that's where I met Zach and sort of where I got my initial experience off the ground. So in terms of the things I've encountered and the projects I've had to work on, I think that there's nothing you guys will encounter that I wouldn't be able to find a solution to and work on. Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you know Chris Patterson?
How long have I known Chris
No, how do
Patterson?
you know him?
He's Manchester's attorney.
Okay.
And so, and then at MTA, they have their wonderful
Okay.
suite and everything, so I've been able to build a bit of a rapport with their office.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Alyssa, John had said 40 hours minimum. Is it minimum or maximum?
Currently, at 10 hours a week in terms of getting you caught up to where, with the permits and everything, I thought that that would probably be reasonable. Comparing it to the amount of workload that you were previously having, that's why I had it at an interim basis to see after a month, is this enough work? Am I meeting your needs? Are there permits and things that we're not having enough time to and we can revise? Or if we're burning over, we can revise again.
Is that 10 hours a week in the office?
No. So currently with Manchester, I do 1 day of office hours a week, and then I work from home the other days. I do live in White Lake, so if John and I had discussed briefly, I am flexible to whatever you guys need, and if you need somebody here to talk to residents and answer questions and things like that, happy to work out office hours too.
All right.
So what days are you in Manchester?
Wednesdays.
Okay.
Good question.
And you know that we're closed Friday,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, and then your planning commission meets the following Wednesday, so in terms of regular meeting conflicts, I didn't find anything like that either.
Dan, did you have any? It's like a good idea. Georgie?
No, go ahead, I'm processing.
Are you contemplating taking on additional clients, or would 2 be your maximum that you could?
Currently at 2, yeah. Trying to be reasonable with how I scale my business. I think with rural planning especially, there's a lot of more
the ordinance maybe isn't as complex with all the districts, but I think there's a lot more nuance. And so spend a lot, I'm thinking right now of like data centers and the things that you guys are dealing with right now. I found that with Manchester, 10 hours a week works. With my office hours and everything else, that meets their needs. So that's how I balanced it. And you guys are bigger, I'm aware, and I just didn't want to overshoot of what your needs would be prior till we sort of get on the ground and figure out exactly where that lies.
Is the proposed agreement, is that your template or did that come from us? Looks like hers. All right, so you say that you will coordinate with town attorney, engineers, building department, other consultants, which I would certainly expect and anticipate. And I don't know what that means in terms of actually engaging, but then in the reporting section, you're indicating you'll provide the representative, township representative, updates on issues requiring board, commission, or legal review. So there's been an issue with legal time on zoning matters and what have you. So I'm curious what your perspective is in terms of working with council that you are familiar with.
I never reach out to council unless directed in terms of, I understand the billing rates higher. The time that they use is going to be higher for the bill that you receive. So it's only at the township, whoever the representative that I end up working with, whether it is the planning commission chairmost, the supervisor, whoever that duty to designate that sort of time to me is, so if they say, and again, my role as a professional is to give you advice and recommendations. So I'm not going to say, hey, you're not meeting this requirement, maybe we should get a read on what Chris thinks of this, and then reach out to him without you guys giving me the go-ahead. So, no, I have a relationship with him to reach out, I have his phone number and all of that, but I don't do it because I recognize that it's going to cost you guys money unless you ask me to.
Okay. Can you share with us, you gave a sample, or maybe it's the actual, from the Manchester PC meeting, section on data centers.
You should have a draft watermark on it, I believe.
It's draft, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Can you share with us how you collaborated with the legal team and board and planning commission on this document?
So with data centers, specifically data centers, we reached out to the legal team first, had Chris's office draft something and send it to us. That's not the usual process. Usually I would write it, planning commission would review it, and then we'd send it to legal. But because this issue has been so fluid with the legislation and everything in that regard, we said let's have them write it first. And they provided a boilerplate ordinance, which is, I think, what we expected. But then at that point, once we received that initial draft from them, then the planning commission reviews it, gave me their initial thoughts on it at the meeting, and then I take it home and I tweaked it to the specific community and what their needs were, Manchester in this case. Because I think a lot of the language that we're getting about data centers is very lenient on things like battery storage, transmission lines, decommissioning, because the assumption is that a lot of these communities that are getting it are more developed communities. And so when we're getting these templates from lawyers or things like that, that are more template-based, that's very important that we tailor to the community because we run into a lot of roadblocks with ordinances that maybe haven't been updated in recent years or that weren't written for a specific community because when you have an issue come up, it just doesn't fit and then you have to make concessions.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Alyssa, you mentioned a lot about planning. Are you planning on doing the permits and stuff here too?
Yes, I also, so in my review of everything that you guys have, that was your planner's job. I do previously I did previously work on permit reviews and doing zoning administration for Riverview, so I have experience in doing that part of it. Manchester has a zoning administrator who issues those permits to Western Washtenaw, so I don't do that currently there, but I have experience and I'm happy to do those reviews and make sure that everything meets compliance before issuing those.
George, go ahead.
So a couple things, please.
Thank you.
The days per week, there's been a lot of chatter about having someone in the office more often. I know you said you live in White Lake.
Correct, yes.
So is 1 day a week in the office acceptable for your drive?
Are you asking me if I think that? Because, yeah, I mean, it's closer than Manchester is, so I'm happy to make the drive.
Yeah, so if you can come in to the office 1 day a week.
Yes.
And then the other question then on that is, okay, 1 day in a week you're in the office and you're at Manchester on Wednesday. Are you somewhere else on the other days? Because what we're getting at here is in the event that, let's say, we're 8 to 4, right?
Something comes up on Friday or.
And if something comes up on Friday, or if it's a noon to 4 or something like that, that you're available, not just, I think a lot of times when people talk about this hybrid work, they think that it's 2 days a week. So it's like 8 hours one day you're in the office, 8 hours another day you're working remote.
Yeah, correct. The way I operate is that, after my meetings, sometimes the supervisor will call me at 10 o'clock at night on my drive home. Not saying you need to do that, but the idea being that I want to be available, after the meeting if something, you're like, I really didn't like how that went, can we revisit or whatever. There's acceptable working hours. I wouldn't never say, oh, I'm not here on Thursday, so I don't answer my phone.
I would just remind this body that what we're talking about here is a bridge to our permanent solution. This is not the permanent solution.
Correct. And I think that was my intention too coming into this, is that do we work well together? Am I the right fit for you guys? And then at the end of this, when you do reorganize or figure out the structure of how you want to do it, we can approach it like any other candidate and redo this process or however you want to do it. I think, my goal with tonight and moving forward until that happens is just to figure out how you guys can keep moving forward in a way that business keeps moving in a professional way.
So Alyssa, if we needed it, let's say our planning commission's working on something and we specifically need something to keep going, we could go above the 40 hours and work with you on that.
And also, I was taking a look at some of the work that the Planning Commission's been doing, and data centers was what was on the last agenda. And then in between, I also try to send commissioners education materials. Currently, we just got a new commissioner in Manchester, so we're starting back from square one of going over what are Robert's Rules of Orders and those sort of things. So maybe you guys have a slow month, and I would also send you more material just for us to discuss and how we could apply it to.
Mayor? So how many hours are you working in Manchester?
About 40 a month right now.
So how many hours are then available per month? Are you interested in working full-time? Well, that gives another, it could be another 80 hours, 120 hours.
Yeah, within reason. I don't want to overcommit. I would say that, there's at least 10 to 20 hours that I can fluctuate in there each week.
George mentioned, there's been open discussion about having more office hours for the ZA administrator for folks involved, is to continue to increase that. But we also have a healthy dose of things on our docket with the Planning Commission.
Yes.
So, in that light, have you had a chance to look at our zoning ordinance?
I have, yes.
Any thoughts?
It's actually very similar to Manchester. It's ironically a lot of the same districts, a lot of, like I said, you have special land uses, but in terms of the urban residential, the low density residential, so I think that there wouldn't be too much of a learning curve as well to figure out the structure is very similar. But more than that, no, I'm open to coming in more a zoning administrator usually is in the office more. They're a regular township employee. So with your community, with that role being more hybrid, I think that, yeah, my initial contract was based on the work that I do in another community, but I'm very open to being flexible and changing that if that's what you find you need.
A couple of the heavy lifts we're working on right now is rewriting our private roads ordinance, which is going really smooth.
I'm sure.
Have you had any experience on these topics? Can you tell us about it?
Yes, so again, rural communities, private roads are a big deal. If we allow, but at the same time, if you don't allow private roads, and you just allow everyone to build off the main road, you create a bunch of unusable land in the back, and it's a very inefficient use of land. So we sort of have the give and take of the private roads of who's responsible for them, who does maintenance, and that all has to be written into the ordinance, as well as dimensions. What is a private road? How is that different from a county road? And those types of things. So, yeah, I have not gone over your private road ordinance specifically, so I have to look at that to see what what are kind of the major issues that people have with it.
We don't have enough time for
Oh,
that.
yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yeah,
We've had an ordinance on the books for quite a long time that's been enforced sporadically, so there's an effort to try to upgrade that in a fair way. You know, the word fair is just a loaded question. But we'll talk more about that. Have you had any experience doing master plans by any chance?
Yes, we just finished one in Manchester. We adopted it this past December. So the city of Manchester recently became last year, they became a city. But when they did that, the joint plan then, we weren't going to renew it. At that point, the city's focusing on their things. So we really quickly jumped into the master plan process over there. And so I did all the mapping for them, creating all of their, so everything from their future land use map to their wetlands map, to their ag conservation areas. So yeah, all aspects of that from their implementation, their goals and objectives. Lots of experience in master plans.
John, did Melissa meet the chairs of the PC or the ZBA by chance? Jean?
No.
My thoughts for the board is that Melissa
She met with Linda briefly and with me.
Tom, PC chair is here. Jean is not yet, right?
Tom?
That's Tom Neal. Jean is not here. But anyway, I would recommend that she get to talk with them and see what's on, how the meetings are run and so on. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming in.
And I just need to add, before I even left our meeting, John, or before I even gotten home from our meeting, Pat Semensky, the township assessor, called me, and then Mike Fusilier at our meeting last week. So you guys have a close community. So it's very similar, and in a lot of ways, that's why I enjoy rural communities. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Alyssa.
All right, commissioners, any, wrong board.
That's okay.
Discussion items. Any further discussion?
I would suggest you ask if anyone wants to take action on this tonight.
Is there a motion?
Well, if I could ask a question. I think you had discussions or calls with other.
There are names in my awareness, but I didn't talk to any of them.
Okay, so you did reach out to Carlisle Warman or CWA?
There were some meetings under the previous supervisor with Wade Trim and with, was it Carlisle Warman? It was Carlisle Warman. I was an attendee at the meeting with Wade Trim. I did not attend the Carlisle Warman meeting.
Yeah. Well, this being an interim stopgap solution, assume that the rates are probably beneficial here versus a larger firm. I don't know if the one meeting you had, they shared any of that information.
I didn't find anything objectionable to the proposed rate. And I also would emphasize that this is not a long-term necessarily situation. So to me, the rate is not terribly important. What's important, you know, and kudos to Jeff. He's been in the chair the last couple of days, and maybe he'd like to share some of his thoughts about that experience. But I really feel like we need, with all due respect, we need somebody in the chair that has the experience of doing this and be able to answer questions and get things done in the way that our community expects.
Sure, no, I agree with that. So we're looking at the Starling Consulting template for the proposal. If I can just refer, did you happen to have Mr. Patterson help you with that? Okay. So just a question whether you want to have legal review.
I guess my thought, there's a lot happening here in the last week, or like the last hour, is that, you know, George and John could get together along with Tony to see what we have, or who else has been talked to. And Tony, if you're willing, maybe we put it on the agenda for next Tuesday.
Have you seen the agenda for next Tuesday?
We can put it on the agenda, yes.
Yeah, I guess I would make a motion to accept the Starling Consulting proposal, which is to provide interim planning and zoning services contingent on legal review of the proposal document.
I would second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Alyssa, when would you be available to start?
So I'm going in tomorrow to Manchester. I mean, I could probably start Monday. That would give me enough time to, Thursday my son has a friend coming over and
That's
the
fine.
Fridays are closed, so I can be here Monday.
My concern, I'm happy to do this in a couple days. I guess I'd like to have the supervisor and the other folks that have been interviewed digest who has been interviewed and where we fall as far as rates and so on. Now, 100 looks attractive to me, but there has been other discussions. I would think the entire officers would like to.
Well, I can only speak for what I've been part of. The Carlisle Workman inquiry, I think, would be the best word for that one. They do not have the capacity to help us. End of the story. Wade trim is extremely expensive, and they want something that's a little bit lengthier in time. They want more of a permanent contract.
Fair enough.
But those are the only two I've been a part of. The only two I've.
All right. Well, and this is a month-to-month. This way it's written also.
So the rates are reasonable. I mean, that's, obviously when you get bigger firms, you're going to get much bigger rates. And the first thing was really finding somebody that we could get to come in and do it. That was the intent and the direction that John and I joined on, but John was given. And in that light, I think this is exactly what we need for right now, just until we can move along and start that process. I'm not opposed to waiting a week to do it, but I don't know that we're gonna get anything better in that week is the issue.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I didn't tell you that's the question, so I was looking at that answer. If there's other viable candidates that weren't here for some reason, we should see it, but if there are not.
Not that I'm aware of, and it's Jeff and John who were assigned.
But it's John that's been doing it. I was on vacation. I haven't had the opportunity.
Okay, all right, I'm good. Thank you.
Shelley?
I don't have any comment, but I'm comfortable voting on it today.
Okay, my comment on it is we don't want the box to fill up, and the residents deserve that they still need the services that we provide. The budget, and again, this is just coming to me now, right? But the budget, it appears to be within budget, the requested rate. I'm good with the legal review. In quickly looking at this, it's a month-to-month contract. with a 30-day written notice by either party to terminate.
Right.
That's about as short as you
Yeah.
can get.
And I think that in my role as a planner, typically I'm speaking to somebody from the township at least every other day. So we'll be in contact, and if you guys are saying, hey, you know, look, we got a great offer from this company, it's part of the consulting world of, it's not personal, and I think that's the goal by the end of this. Whether we end up working together long-term or not, everything that we work on here, clean documents, copies of everything, you'll have all of that and can move forward smoothly with whatever process that is.
Okay. And also, just in what I've been told through the grapevine with CWA and, you know, other communities that they work in, it's already been stated as they're kind of high.
Yeah.
And in fact, they're kind of shockingly high. And we don't, if we can not go over the budget, I'd like to not have to go into the summer and fall having a budget amendment.
Yeah, and that was my experience there of, you have there's a huge gap here of planning in the field itself is accelerating so quickly in the needs of communities, you know, having these more technical reviews, having that, you know, engineering and all of that. And I think that so Zach and I, that's how I got to know Zach, we specialized and did all the rural communities together with Johnny Knows. And you just quickly see this knowledge gap happening of they can't continue to sustain small communities, but without that representation, you're left to MTA, sort of in the resources they provide you, if you don't have a planner. And so that was actually that's how I ended up sort of organically working for Manchester, is they approached me after I left the company, and that's how I ended up specializing in more rural communities.
Yeah, the rough numbers were like, John, 8,000 a month is what we're spending on planning? 9?
We were spending closer to 9.
9. I mean, that gives you a rough idea, George. So we can monitor, I heard $100 an hour.
That's a lot more.
That's correct. Right. So we're still well within the budget.
Yeah, we can scale time to make sure that works.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Okay, roll call. Shelley.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes.
See you Monday.
Congratulations.
All right, next item, correspondence. Anybody have anything? All right. Call to the public.
Who's going to introduce myself?
You know, we could have put him on the day after tomorrow.
No, I'm going to be out here now.
Please don't leave.
No,
Oh,
same here.
Tom Neal, 7623 Kingfisher Court, Webster, Michigan. I am coming up here as the chair of the PC because I'm very concerned about what just happened without consulting either of the chairs. Nothing against you, but it was my understanding that we were looking for a zoning administrator temporarily, not a planning commissioner. All the questions were asked of her had to do with planning, including the master plan, which is the board's first responsibility to initiate, not the planning commission. Therefore, I think the cart is a little bit ahead of the horse, or there's been a lack of communication on understanding on what had been talked to among many of us for the need with the planning commission versus zoning administrator. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Thomas. Anyone else?
The famous Ray Tell.
That's me, buddy. Ray Tell, 3539, City of Dexter. I am currently a trustee in the City of Dexter. I've been a trustee and involved in the city well over 30 years. I know all three of the candidates. Mr. Stevens, I've met at Dexter Forum. John, I know from the Dexter Forum Senior Center and the Fire Board. George Goodman, I haven't seen for 30 years because I used to work at Jacobson's, and he was friends with John Rowland, I believe. And his dad was No, his uncle was Bill, Mr. Taylor. So it's been a long time, so I was surprised when I seen your name in there, but that's fine. I didn't realize you were so involved in PC and all that, which I think is great. You guys had to make a tough decision. Ain't no doubt. And I don't know why anyone would want to be supervisor anyway. It's the most, all you get is complaints and people telling you you're wrong. So it's very difficult for someone to stand up and to try to take that responsibility. And I admire that in all three candidates. I thought John was the shoo-in winner, but I don't have the history with the past board and supervisor to realize everything that's occurred in your rationale for going with George under the, I'm sure he's very personal. But I would hate to see John remove himself for such a critical position that he occupies now. I do agree with you that it maybe should not have been part of the discussion for your qualifications, for the law, fearing for the loss of your expertise. However, you're probably one of the most integral parts of this board, if not the township. Your number one job when you guys took jobs to be township administrators is what is best for Webster now and in the future. And that's what I expect. Now, the reason I'm up here is I don't even live in Webster Township. I live in Dexter. But I've been on the board for 20 odd years, I don't know. So as this area becomes more and more developed out here, I think it's important that we're able to form a partnership with our surrounding communities. And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. I value John's opinion and Dan's very much. I don't ever make it to your meetings because I have my own to go to. But this was important enough for me to borrow a car, come on up here and see what was going on. So I thank you for your time and congratulations, George.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you, Carl.
Anyone else?
Paul's Lucas, 6700 Mass Road. Congratulations, George. My only comment today is forming a committee about our future plan on a zoning administrator and planner. Tom and I were talking back there as your conversation was regarding a lot of planning commission things. We don't want an interim person doing anything with our ordinance. I was hoping you made that clear, but you did not make that clear. You want a permanent person who's going to be here months and years with what they wrote. Okay. That's what, so we need to form that committee like we did before. You know, a couple of you, planning commissioners, a couple of ZDA members, to move forward on hiring a permanent planner and a permanent administrator. Thank you.
Anyone else?
It's your turn, Peter.
Yeah, I will. Peter Stevens, 7500 Trotters Lane. Thank you all for your deliberations tonight. Really, I just have some comments on the process, and I'm sorry it's going to be directed, John, towards you a little bit. I was surprised that the board had John voting on this as he was a candidate. I was also surprised that John was able to speak to the board about it as a candidate when George wasn't also offered the same kind of opportunity. I just thought that was really weird. I know that there were some folks out here in the crowd making some noises, wondering what was going on. And then just to the same thing, John, I don't know what that meant about you maybe not being treasurer. I took that as a threat to the township and to the board. I thought that was really inappropriate and below the office. Thank you, guys.
Anyone else? Going once? Twice? All right. Okay, so that, okay. Call the public is closed. Now, concerns of the board members.
I'd just like to address Mr. Stevens' concern, and apparently it is more than just Mr. Stevens. The law actually allows Mr. Sharp to vote on this position. The only thing that it denies him would be, or any of us for that matter, would be to vote on our replacement. So if, for instance, I were to resign, I would not be allowed to vote on my replacement for the rest of the term. But he certainly is allowed to vote on whether or not he will be elected to a different position. I know it seems odd, but that's the way the MCL reads.
Yeah, it's the state law.
I'm sorry, MCL is Michigan compiled laws.
Anyone else?
Yeah, one question. I always thought that was on also. I had to look that up as far as the MCL, but John is certainly capable of doing that. And there's a long time precedent with that. The law's been around forever. A couple of the comments that were made about the planning commission and so on. You know, the board of trustees has the ultimate responsibility for all documents for the building. That includes the zoning ordinance. The planning commission does all the heavy lifting, and I view them as their subject matter experts on a whole array of topics. But the planning commission itself cannot write the ordinance. The ordinance gets approved by this body. So hence, it's this body's job to make sure the planning commission has all the resources they need, but then also we provide a high-level peer review function to make sure we don't think a mistake was made. For example, the planning commission could make a recommendation to us on some ordinance, we could reject it and send it back. So hence my questions to the would-be commissioner. I think also one great way to interview someone is to work with them for a while. Is that trying to have an interview for an hour and hire them for years on end is a real challenge. I've had an average of that is below 50%. If I'm okay, I'll just anyway. But the point is, if I think Alyssa would give him the chance, she may be a key candidate if her 2 months or however long she is here goes well. I think her assessment for it being something in the future, longer term, is critical, and hence the reason for the questions. That's all. Thank you.
I would like to thank the 3 candidates again, and congratulate George.
You're here.
I have no concerns. I move that we adjourn.
Well, before you move to adjourn, I got a couple things.
Oh, okay.
All right, the first thing is pertaining to the interim conversation this evening. It's exactly that, it's interim. It's a 30-day, it's a month-to-month basis. The township needs help. They need it now, they need it help. And we cannot let this stuff back up. I 100% understand what Tom was saying and Paul, 100%, but we can't let this stuff back up on us. The rate is within budget. She can clear things out. We can then have the proper communication going forward for a permanent. And I'm going to close with closing remarks. This time I wrote them down. I want to thank the board for their confidence in me, as well as the various calls of support I have received from friends and neighbors in the township. I would also like to acknowledge John Sharp, Peter Stevens, for always having a kind and professional conversation about township business with me. I look forward to more of those interactions. And this has been for years. Let me make that clear, for years for both of them. We are all partners in this together. I'm here to look forward and not in the rearview mirror. Webster Township is and always has been a great place to live. Together, we will proceed forward, ensuring a better life for the people, crops, and animals they raise in this community. Thank you. there a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?